Welcome to U.S. Visa Questions Answered Here.
Welcome to U.S. Visa Questions Answered Here with Immigration Attorney Frances Hayden. For decades, Frances has focused on consular processing of non-immigrant visas at U.S. embassies and consulates worldwide, with a special emphasis on third country national visa processing. I'm your host, Sophia Morales, and today's episode is Extraordinary Ability Visas. What are they and who qualifies? And today, to help us discuss this, we have the privilege of welcoming our special guest, Liz Profumo, an esteemed immigration attorney and founding partner at Global Talent Law. With her impressive background in immigration law, Liz has dedicated her career to assisting individuals and businesses navigate the complexities of immigration regulations. Her passion for advocacy and commitment to her clients have positioned her as a leading expert in her field. We are thrilled to have Liz join us today to share her insights and her expertise. Welcome, ladies. I'm so happy to have both of you here.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me.
So let's start with some of the fundamentals, Liz. What are extraordinary visas, and is this the same thing as what they call the genius visa?
So usually when people refer to an extraordinary ability visa, they're referring to an O1 visa, which is a temporary visa that can be issued for a specific period of time to allow someone to work on specific projects or a series of projects in the U.S. There is, however, an extraordinary ability green card or extraordinary ability immigrant visa that you may also hear reference to.
Okay. And so they're distinctly different. One is much more time constrained than the other ones?
That's right. So the O1 being temporary, again, the time frame you can work in the U.S. with it is limited. Also, the standard for approval is lower when you compare it to the EB1 immigrant visa, which can allow you to live and work in the U.S. permanently. So there's no limitation on the amount of time that you can work here. But the standard for approval for the permanent resident visa or the immigrant visa is a much higher standard for approval.
So you mentioned that there are different kinds of extraordinary ability visas, some short, some permanent. When we go down this road, do we need sponsors? Do we need to have job offers in place? How does this work?
So when you're applying for an O1 visa, you do have to show that you have work lined up in the US. So it's possible to work exclusively for one company for one project or a series of projects. It's also possible with an O1 visa to work for multiple companies, and that's referred to as an agent petition.
Okay. So who would be looking at an agent petition typically?
So typically it would be any artist who is interested in living in LA that doesn't have a slate of projects lined up with a studio. So anyone working on independent projects, that's going to be more typically who's going to apply for that O1. The studios, when they bring talent in, or the big companies, I'm referring to film studios, TV studios, because I do a lot of film and TV work. But, any large company, record labels included, they will often sponsor the talent to work exclusively for them. So the artists, though, that want some more flexibility will then separately file an agent petition to have more flexibility in the work they're allowed to accept.
Which kind of opens up a question for me in my mind. Extraordinary visas, is this primarily like in the performing arts, or are there other areas in which you can be considered extraordinary?
Absolutely. There are three different kinds of O1 visas, actually. The first one, the O1A, is for people who have shown their success in the fields of business, science, education, or athletics. And then there are two O1B visas. There's one for people who work in the film and TV industry, and then there's one for people who work in the arts, which is anything creative outside of film and TV, essentially.
Okay, so your painters, your sculptors, that sort of.
Yeah, and it's an interesting line between what constitutes film and TV these days and what doesn't. So painters and sculptors are securely within the arts, but also advertising is within the arts. A lot of content creation. So a lot of people that are making online content are not considered to be in the film and TV industry as well. We see a lot of people working in that area as well.
Interesting. So sort of your digital nomad influencer type.
Yes, exactly.
Liz does a lot of visas for influencers, for online creators. I think it would be surprising to the average person how many of those people qualify. And I'm wondering, Liz, what are the things that you look for with an influencer to see whether or not they qualify? What are the indicia of extraordinary ability?
Right. So I would say that it tends to be kind of their following and how much recognition they've received. So not necessarily just having a specific number of followers, but a lot of influencers who have a lot of followers have either received some kind of gold, silver awards from the various platforms that they're successful on. Whether they monetize their followers is also a big component. So if they either have lucrative brand deals or they're able to just monetize their content on their own, those are things that are very helpful. Also, if they're so big that they have traditional media coverage of their work, that's also a great piece of the puzzle for O1s for influencers.
Okay. Do you have to be like Mr. Beast famous or?
You don't have to be Mr. Beast famous, but you do have to have a substantial following. There has to be something impressive to be able to say about your content, your viewership, why you stand out in the field.
Excellent. And can this be like a stepping stone to an actual green card if you go with an O1, or is it kind of a dead end?
It can be a stepping stone. So for a lot of people who get an O1, they will eventually qualify for the Extraordinary Ability Green Card. Most will not qualify immediately. So an O1 can initially be issued for 3 years. So for people who are, younger and just starting their career, most of them won't qualify for the higher standard of EB1 at the end of a 3-year period. It might be 6 years or 9, but a lot will eventually meet the standard for the green card. Not everyone.
What is the standard for the green card?
So
Since you brought that up.
Yeah, so the standard for the green card is you have to be one of the small percentage working at the very top of your field of endeavor. So that is the standard set by USCIS. So really, and how do you determine what is the top of your field? It's subjective and depending on the field. For my film and TV people, when you're regularly working for the major networks, for the studios, that's a good indication. For people who are in music, when you're recording with big labels, when you're touring at big venues, things like this. And, I can go on and on for people who work in science and business, when you are, in a very prestigious role at an important company, especially when you work in science and business, if you do receive any press or media attention about your work, it's more unusual than when you're in the arts. So, depending on the field, there's different indicators, but really you want to show that you are working at the highest levels.
Excellent. And so what's the process of getting an O1 visa like? What are the steps we have to go through?
For almost all temporary visas to work in the U.S., it's usually a U.S. sponsor, employer, or petitioner who's required to actually file the petition on behalf of the foreign worker. So the petitioner has to, provide information that's needed for the petition. What's different about the O1, a lot of times the employer does almost all the work in preparing a visa. For the O1s, because so much of it is dependent on the artist's success, the artist has to provide all the information about their past achievements, which is always very individual. So the artist provides the information about their achievements and their successes. The petitioner provides information about the job offers, whatever else USCIS requires. Some O1s require us to send the case to whatever unions oversee the artist's field of endeavor. I'm saying artists, this applies for scientists, people in business as well. If there's a union that oversees their field, the union has to review the case to issue a letter of non-objection to make sure they don't have any problem with the foreign national working here, then it's filed with USCIS. So, it is a bit of a process. So
Yeah, it sounds like it.
usually it takes a few, so under the best of circumstances, it takes a few months. That's if you use immigration's premium processing service. It's a faster service that they charge almost $3,000 for. And if you don't pay it, then your processing time, instead of being 3 to 4 months from the time you start it until the time your O1 is approved, it might be more like 9 months.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
And
it significantly speeds it up.
How
Yeah.
many pages does your average O1 case have before you send it to USCIS?
So, after many years of refining my process, I strive to have O1s be not much more than 300 pages. I have
Not much
seen
more than 300 pages. Oh, my heavens.
exactly those of us who do this work, and I'm sure Frances has seen cases too, where petitions for O1 applicants, I've seen them, they're thousands of pages, and no one wants to read that. So I think just being able to, be able to zero in on the highlights of your client's qualification, is a valuable skill.
I was going to say an art that probably gives you some goodwill with the person reviewing it.
That is the hope.
It can.
So,
I wanted
so go ahead.
I'm interrupting, but I just wanted to point out that a lot of people don't know that once that petition is approved, if you're in the U.S. and we request that you be given the O1 status, changing from whatever other status you had previously, so long as you entered with a visa, you can start working. But you can also do this with the applicant outside the U.S. or an applicant that doesn't want to do it within the inside. And then in order to travel, they need to apply at a U.S. consulate or embassy for the O1 visa, which is a completely separate process. And sometimes people are surprised by that. That's why I mention it.
That's a good thing to mention. I also had a question because you mentioned that the sponsor usually does most of the heavy lifting. How does this work in the case where you're doing the agency petition, where you're going to have multiple sponsors perhaps while you're here?
Yeah, so for the O1s, the artists or the beneficiaries are generally doing more of the heavy lifting. So, the petitioners for an agency-based O1, they just need to provide certain information about the agreement they have in representing the artist in the visa petition. And they're kind of verifying the veracity of the application, that the information is true and accurate to the best of their knowledge. And they're signing paperwork and agreeing to allow the person to work for multiple companies, the foreign artist.
Very good. So what are my odds of success if I go out for an O1 petition? What are the odds I get approved?
Yeah, so actually USCIS has been approving O1s at quite a high rate, over 90%
Wow.
under the Biden administration. And actually under the Trump administration, the last Trump administration, we did not see a significant decline in O1 approval rates, which is great. I think it was an overall 3 to 4% decline. So far, we don't have enough data. They haven't released data about O1 approval rates under the new administration, but they seem to be holding strong. So I think the overall approval rate is in the 92% range.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And so what about the EB1 green card application? How is that a little different or special?
So generally that tends to fluctuate, the approval rates for the EB1A. So USCIS doesn't actually publish the EB1A specifically approval rates, but from what we've been able to ascertain, it tends to fluctuate between 65 to 70 to 73%. So generally your chances of approval for the O1 are just going to be significantly stronger than they are with the EB1 green cards.
Excellent. Is there anything I've forgotten to ask her, Frances?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we could go on forever and get more specific, but that's a great overview. And Liz has all the information on the tip of her tongue because she does this every day. Some immigration attorneys are general practitioners and they do everything. But to do the extraordinary ability area well, you have to be like Liz and really focused almost exclusively on that, because it's a very subspecialized area of immigration law. So I send all my cases to her, and we work together on the various aspects, me usually handling the consular part, and I wouldn't send my extraordinary ability cases to anyone but Liz.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for sharing this really valuable information with us today.
Thank you. And thank you, Liz, for your time.
And thank you both for having me today.
Thanks for joining us on U.S. Visa Questions Answered Here with Immigration Attorney Frances Hayden.
We hope today's conversation gave you clarity and confidence as you navigate the immigration process. If you have questions or need legal support, visit haydenimmigrationlaw.com to schedule a consultation. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Your support helps others find the guidance they need. And until next time, take care and stay empowered.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.